Welcome to the Nonprofit 2.0 podcast, where we help leaders in nonprofit organizations scale and expand their impact. We are so excited to have Katherine Lacefield on with us today. She's a powerhouse in fundraising, and we are going to share lots of fun and useful tidbits from a donor stewardship as well as a fundraising perspective. Katherine, I'd love to give you the chance to introduce yourself.
Sure, no problem. So thank you so much for having me. I can talk fundraising all day long. It is really one of my biggest passions. I've been working in the nonprofit space for over 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about it. My background is really more from an environmental and animal perspective. So I did a lot of animal advocacy. I studied environmental development. And of course, when you're working in these kinds of causes, you can't help but have to do fundraising because it tends to be with smaller teams that you wear multiple hats, as I'm sure many nonprofit listeners will be able to know that that is their reality as well. And so I ended up starting to dip my toes into fundraising. And before I knew it, I was the head of development of the organization. I was managing all of their programs. And that just led to me really falling in love with it. And now I'm a consultant working with I don't even know how many nonprofits every year to really improve their fundraising strategies.
And how did you make that pivot from working within a nonprofit to being a consultant?
Well, COVID basically happened. So after working in the animal rights sector for a really long time, I kind of burnt out from the stress of it and the pressure that was put on it on my job. So I took a break and I started working in a research lab that was based in Montreal. So it was a philanthropy research lab, so not testing on animals. It was really based on fundraising in the grant making space. So I really learned a lot about philanthropy from an institutional perspective. Was working there. I had a side job as a waitress, and then COVID happened, and suddenly I didn't have a sideline job. So my husband encouraged me and pushed me to be like, "Hey, well, you're really good at fundraising. You like talking. Why not look into being a consultant?" Especially there was so many nonprofits that really needed support during that time. So that's kind of where it started. And now, almost 6 years later, it's still going strong. It's going as strong as ever. And people need my help even more than ever. So it's been going really good.
hmm And our backgrounds are actually quite similar. I also started my business at the start of COVID. When I started Clary Base, it was really out of my mom's living room couch, and it just made sense at the time because it didn't feel like applying to jobs was the best option at the time. And I had skills and systems, and I figured, you know what, let's give this a try. So it turned out, I think, very well for both of us. And how do you approach your work with your clients? So a nonprofit will come to you and they say, hey, we really need some fundraising help. Where do you start?
Most of the time, as I'm sure many nonprofits can feel, they don't know what they need. They think they know and they don't. And especially in fundraising, there's a big connection between fundraising and marketing and communications. And if you don't have strong marketing, you don't have strong communications platforms, you cannot have a strong fundraising strategy. So I often end up coming in with, okay, let's do a little audit of your current fundraising strategies or lack thereof. And then let's figure out what I can actually bring to the table and in what order. So sometimes they do have certain systems in place and I can just add on, or do they need me to come from a strategic level or from an implementation perspective so we can really figure out what is the best use of my time, depending on the resources they have on the inside. There's a lot of auditing, figuring out, lots of conversation. On average, a client will take between 3 to 6 months to work with me because they have to make all these questions inside what they're looking for. It takes forever for a lot of nonprofits to make these decisions. So we kind of get the time to get to know each other a bit more, build that trust before we end up working together.
I see. I see. So once you start working together, what do you find are some of the outcomes of the projects?
Well, obviously, it really depends. I think the major one is definitely increased clarity on what fundraising is and how they can improve their fundraising internally. So a lot of nonprofits, they're just kind of winging it. They're just trying to figure out like, oh, what can we do? And we have these people that are giving money. Sometimes they don't really know. Most of the time, they don't really know what they're doing. So giving them the structure and the systems in place so that they can run on their own. That is something that has been really important to me as a consultant. I don't want to create a dependency. I don't want them to need me and my input for the system to work. So I really work around automations, around policies, around templates so that they can then, okay, you're good. You can move on. Wonderful. I can go and help another nonprofit. So that's kind of one of the outcomes is I feel they have more confidence in their own fundraising strategies and they have a plan. So if it might be over 1 year, over 3 years, depending on what we're working on, so that they know in January what do they have to do, who should they be reaching out to, what kind of fundraising activities they should be doing, so that they don't have to have that questioning every day. Oh, like what should I work on? That's kind of been what I would say is the one of the biggest clarity from a fundraising strategy perspective, but also, of course, increased funds. So when I come in and I improve and optimize their fundraising strategies, I've seen a lot of organizations really increase their fundraising because they're just doing it more optimally.
Yeah. And what kinds of systems and automations are you recommending? I'm definitely interested because we're building and working in systems every day.
Sometimes it's very basic stuff. Like, do you have a fundraising platform that is allowing you to see all of your donor information? A lot of people that I've worked with, they have just that really ugly PayPal yellow box on their donation page that just you put in an amount and you donate and it's like pay. It's not at all optimized for a fundraising context. There's no storytelling, there's no explanation of where is this money going. So I tend to also help them choose and select the right tools that fit their budget, their resources, and what they're looking for. So, for example, I work a lot with Donor Box that allows them to have an easy page that they get set up on that allows them to have one place where all of their donations are being stored. So that way, from a stewardship perspective, we know who we can contact and how. So sometimes it's just basic stuff like that. But I am a big fan of welcome series. I think a lot of times, from a communication perspective, it might be hard to send out an email every single month for some smaller nonprofits. But having a welcome series based on different triggers, like a new donor, someone subscribes to your newsletter, someone joined your monthly giving program, setting up 3 or 4 emails at least that will be sent at a different cadence to just get people warmed up and to keep them excited about your work, even if you're super busy. So, those are some of the basic automations that I implement for a lot of nonprofits.
Yeah. And it's cool because when you say you're a fundraising consultant, you're really doing marketing, communications, and system implementation as well as part of this whole fundraising, like in the name of fundraising, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really separate the two. Like a lot of times your fundraising how are people going to know about your fundraising campaign? It's through your marketing and your communication. So, it's really hard and I think that's really difficult in a lot of nonprofits where they kind of segment the two and the two are working in silos when they can really feed each other. You can really include stewardship components and donor acquisition components into your communications as well as you can definitely have some of your communications being embedded into your fundraising practices. So it's really hard to separate the two. So I tend to always come in with like, all right, let's put on multiple hats and let's figure out the solutions together.
Yeah. And that background that you've had in research and in animal welfare, I'm sure helps a lot with that because you were the one wearing multiple hats before and now you're showing other people how to do it.
Well, how I would have liked to have been doing it back then, right? So I don't want them to burn out like I did because it was exhausting and I didn't know where to go. So I've definitely learned a lot throughout the years. And I think it's really important to note that I don't know everything. And when I feel like they need someone else, like I have a really big network of partners and collaborators that I can come in to be like, okay, you really need an expert in this particular field because I'm not a jack of all trades to that extent. So I think it is important to know what you can and what you cannot do.
Yeah. And that's a really good call out because as you talk about even sending that welcome sequence to the new donors, like I think at some point it does touch on, okay, well, what communication does that new donor get? Is it the welcome sequence or should they also get the monthly newsletter that gets sent out? And we work with a lot of marketing teams as well. And that communication of who is seeing what and are there too many pieces of communication? Sometimes that gets in the way as well.
Oh, the mapping. Exactly. The mapping of your communications. And also, it depends on what tools you're using. Some tools can make it really easy to segment and to say, okay, I use Flowdesk and I really love that I can say at this particular time, if they're in this segment, then this will happen. But not all email platforms allow you to go to that level of granularity. But definitely those are questions also that depend on the frequency of your email communications and what's your objectives. Like, do you want them to be led in a particular journey, or do you also want them to be kept up to date with what you're doing today? So there's so many different strategies, and this is where like I work with a branding expert who she helps me as well from a visual component. Like there's just no one size fits all for every organization either. So yeah, you need to always collaborate with other people as much as possible.
Yeah. And you touched on this point around stewardship because your, PayPal button doesn't necessarily even tell you who has donated and uh, how to engage with them afterwards. A lot of the communication and marketing that we were talking about just now is around stewardship.
Hmm.
How do you um, how do you see the difference between a one-time donor versus like multiple versus a donor who donates multiple times?
Well, if you look statistically speaking for one-time donors, I think I've seen a statistic that was hovering around between 10 to 15% of donors are actually going to give a second time. That's so tiny. Like we're only retaining 10 to 15% of our donors. And I do believe that a large part of that has to do with the lack of investment in stewardship. Yeah, like nonprofits are constantly posting on social media like there's an emergency, give us money. There's an emergency, give us money, and they're not necessarily taking the time to build the relationships with their donors that will motivate and inspire people to stay and to join as a recurring donor, so as a monthly donor.
Yeah.
And this is where these different strategies make a really big impact. So when we're talking about welcome series, if you get that new donor and you share with them every month for 6 months a really cool, inspiring story of how their donations are helping transform lives or make a difference, they're much more likely when you ask them for a second time to give. And once they've given that second time, there's so the likelihood that they'll stay with you in the longer term increase dramatically. So people tend to be in like this acquisition, like sales mode, almost like we're constantly just trying to get new clients. But it's been proven even in the for-profit world that retaining an existing client is so much cheaper than trying to get a new one. So nonprofits really need to get on board with this and start focusing more of the communications on the internal people that are already there instead of just always trying to get new people in the doors.
Yeah. And, we think about getting from 0 to 1. It's like implementing the systems, implementing the sequences, and just having a tool that even lets you see who all of your donors are, where are they donating, how much are they donating in like a more effective way. And then the second thing is we're moving from 1.0 to like 2.0, where we're actually actively focusing on the stewardship piece. How do you approach that, like beyond emails?
Well, it really depends on the capacity of the organization of the team and the tools that they have at their availability. So, for example, I work with a very small animal shelter here in Albania. So that's part of the reason why I'm here as well, where they're very small. So we've mostly been doing email. They're very active on social media, but we decided to do something a bit different because a lot of our donors are not Albanian. There's a lot that are international. We made a list of our top donors, and I just bought little postcards from Skole, so from the city they're from, that were nothing to do with animals. And I just wrote them, hey, here's a piece of Albania because there's a piece of you with us here at the shelter. So I sent them, I just mailed them out. Like it cost me $10 to send out these 10 postcards to donors around the world. And that's going to build a really strong sense of like, thank you so much. So postcards can be a really great way, or any direct mail. I think it's underutilized from a stewardship perspective. People tend to send direct mail when they're asking for money. But what about sending just a little handwritten note to say thank you? People only receive bills and pamphlets and trying to sell them things, just a cute little thank you card. People are much more likely to put it on their fridge or put it on their mantle or keep it, especially if you have a cute little artwork that goes with it. So definitely direct mail is up there. Phone calls, like people, yes, people use the phone to make calls, not just to use it for social media. So calling your donors just to say, hey, thank you. I want to update you on what we've done since you made your donation a couple months ago can be a really great way of contacting and communicating your donors. And one that if people feel like calling people and like quote unquote harassing them because you have to call them maybe multiple times before they answer, an alternative is when you're sending a thank you email to include a little, hey, I'd love to get to know you a bit more. Here's an invitation for a little coffee chat for our donors. We'd love to get to know what you love about us and what's your invitation. Like, you'd be surprised. Not everyone will accept. So you shouldn't be bombarded with coffee chats, but those that do will really appreciate it. And I've had people reply to those emails being like, I've never been invited as a donor to have a conversation. This is the first time. And she was an older lady. And she just loved the fact that we were interested in what she was doing. So those are some of the basic strategies that go beyond emails of, yes, there's an email component, but that you can really build a stronger connection with them in a way that makes it feel more authentic.
Yeah, that definitely just feels so heartwarming when you were talking about the postcards and,
Yes, I love
sending a
postcards. I
nice
love
mail
the
mail because, yeah, like, everyone just gets bills and the flyers.
boring. It's not fun. Like, I remember when I don't like, when we were kids and we would do the pen pal thing in school, and it was just so exciting to, like, receive mail that was fun, and we kind of lost that. So there's also that, what's the word when you remember things from the past?
Like, nostalgic feeling.
Yes, the nostalgia of when we were things were more slow, and the intention behind taking the time to, and like, I wrote it all by hand, cramming the letters because I wanted to send a long message, and it's a tiny postcard. I think that means a lot to people. That makes them really feel special. Another thing that I did for stewardship, and I'll tell you the story of Brian Jordan. He's one of my favorite donors ever. He's actually one of the donors for the animal shelter here in Albania.
Yeah.
And so his story is really a demonstration of the power of stewardship. So he started off as a monthly donor at $20 a month in January of last year. And what we did is automation. So creating the systems is that in our donor box system, there's a monthly email receipt that is sent automatically to all monthly donors through the system. So it's already there. But what's cool is that you can go and customize that email. So what I did is every month I had a reminder to update the automatic email. So on the day of their donations, not only are they getting a boring here is your receipt email, they're getting a story of like what we've been working on that month. So there was that aspect that I thought was really interesting, that you don't have to do a newsletter and schedule it. It was just automatically on the date of their donations. We invited all of our monthly donors to join us just for a casual Zoom call. We invited just the monthly donors, the best friends, and we just shared with them what we're doing. Two of the donors there, I'm pretty sure Brian was one of them, increased their donation directly from there. So we started communicating him directly because he was also donating to all of our other campaigns. And so I started joking with him of like, Brian, I'm going to have to like ban you from our Facebook because you're just donating to like all of our campaigns. Like, I feel bad. And he was like, I will find a way. I will find all the campaigns that I will donate. And so we started just building this very friendly, personal rapport. And I'm not saying to do this with everyone. We ended up connecting on Facebook because I'm really good friends with the founder. He was constantly seeing my name, which he associated with the emails. And now we regularly are talking about life and dogs. And he also wants to build a van like me. And we become really good friends. And just to say, like, over the last year and a half, without me ever asking him to increase his monthly gift, he is now giving $170 a month to the organization. And we have never asked him for more. We've almost like told him to stop. So when you really authentically care about being interested in the donor and building that relationship beyond just because we want your money, people can sense it and then they really want to support you.
Yeah, I love that story of just building up that relationship and stewarding the donors over time. And it's not possible if we didn't have any systems. It's not possible if we didn't ever reach out and just care for them as much as they care about the organization as well.
And I think that donors more and more now, especially younger donors, they expect more because they see what is possible with systems and with platforms, and they see what companies are doing to steward customers. And I'm not saying that it's a realistic expectation, but there is more and more of an expectation of like, you could have just sent an email. Like, why is it so difficult to send out a newsletter to tell us at least every now and then what you're doing? And some nonprofits don't even do that. So I think I understand that a lot of nonprofits are super under resourced, but this is the reality that donors do expect more. And this is what they're going to choose if they continue donating to you or not. So it is an investment that has a huge ROI. So think about it. Doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to send out the snail mail. You don't have to do a million calls, but create the systems that work for you, even if you're busy.
Yeah. And you've been doing this work for a while. What are some aha moments that you've had over the years?
Well, so okay, so I'll talk to you about Donor Lingo, which is a funny story because it's something I launched to talk about donor stewardship. So I was recently traveling the world this summer trying to find our next place where we are going to live, and my husband is half Hungarian. So we were spending some time in Hungary. So I was doing Duolingo and I was learning every day a little bit. And Hungarian is one of the most difficult languages in the world. Okay. It's very, very hard to learn. But I got super into it of like, oh no, my streak, it's gonna die. Like I need to keep Duo happy. And there was the gamification of the learning process. And I was doing this 30-day challenge of posting every day on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, what if we did a 30-day challenge so that people would have this gamified version of stewardship? What if we made it fun? And so then I started thinking about what could we do as a 30-day challenge, and it actually launched 2 months ago. So it's Donor Lingo. I can share the link with you if you want to share it in the notes. And basically, it's a small prompt every day, Monday to Friday, for 30 days. So it's actually over 6 weeks, which gives you a task that's 10 to 15 minutes long to implement. So it's not about changing everything. It's about doing a little bit every single day to build it up. So it might be just setting up an automation or writing out an email. It might not even be the full task. We try to break it down. Because if you start building it into a habit, it just becomes normal that, oh, we just got this new donor. Let me set them into this segment or let me
Mhm.
mail this. It's about getting ready to be able to do stewardship. So that was one of my, I remember we were on this mountain in Georgia and we filmed these funny videos. And I was just like, I got so excited about creating this challenge because I know how much it's hard. Life is hard sometimes and it's heavy. And sometimes if we make it fun, so for those listening, if you do join, I made it fun by when you click on like I did my activity, you get a random GIF that shows up. That's like a celebratory GIF or a meme about fundraising or stewardship, just to get you that little dopamine of like something fun to look forward to. And I
Yeah,
think when we turn it into something fun that you'll also see the returns from it, it really makes a huge difference in your motivation to do it.
that's really cool. I love it. I've done Duolingo before, and the bird just continuously gets more and more upset if I miss
He gets
things.
angry. Sometimes it's like an hour into the day and he's like, "Did you practice?" And I'm like, "Relax." It can be very intense.
Yeah, exactly. Where can people find you?
So I'm a LinkedIn girl. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I think it's from a B2B perspective, it's the place to be. And for nonprofit leaders, I think that you should also be there if you're not already on LinkedIn, because that is where you're going to be meeting with potential funders, with businesses that might be good sponsors that can become ambassadors of your organization, and just to generally be showing up in the thought leadership space. I think you should also be on LinkedIn. So definitely on LinkedIn. And if not, you can definitely check out my website. So it's justbecause.consulting. Very easy. And I also have a podcast where I talk about a lot of the environmental and animal causes and how everything is interrelated. And also a lot of fundraising stuff, of course. So you can find that with the Just Be Cause, which is 3 separate words podcast.
Awesome. And just on the topic of animals, I recently adopted my dog from an animal shelter 4 months ago.
Oh, kind of puppy.
She's a 3-year-old Samoyed. It's
Wow.
a white fluffy cloud of a dog.
My husband's family has a Samoyed and she's absolutely gorgeous. I have my Mr. Pickles. He's my little adopted Mexican street dog. Love dogs.
They're so smart. They're very street smart.
But especially Samoyeds. Like Samoyeds are also known, like work dogs tend to be very, very smart as well.
Yeah, she's a very good dog. Okay, well, thank you so much, Catherine. Again, my name is Cherry, and I'm the founder at Clarybase. You can find us at clarybase.com if you're ever looking for systems and just hoping to find some more clarity in the work that you do. All right. Thanks, everyone.